So very briefly, our mission at Audubon is to protect birds, wildlife, and their habitat through engaging all people of all ages in education, conservation, stewardship, and action. So this birdsong presentation is really about how to engage more deeply with your environment and with birds. And the way I like to think about it is that we will protect the things that we love. So that the more that we understand what's out there to protect, the more likely we are to take action together. So birdsong, it's really lovely. And this time of year, things are really heating up and getting going with birdsong. So, you know, right now you're starting to hear all those birds that have been around all winter long, and they're starting to sing a little bit different songs. And they're also, all those spring migratory birds are arriving more and more every day. So you kind of need to be on your toes to catch up with everyone who's arriving. But one thing I wanted to just start off with is just recognizing that you know a lot of the bird songs that are already going on out there. And it can be a little overwhelming, especially with spring migration, because it's not just the birds that are nesting here in Vermont. There are birds that are moving through, and they're out there singing, and for all the different reasons. And you don't have to learn them all this year. You don't have to learn them all right away, but just adding a few new songs every year to your library that you have in your head over time, you end up knowing a lot more than you imagine is possible. And that's the way it's happened for me. So without further ado, we'll get right into to that bird song. So why do birds sing? It's not just here in the springtime, but in the springtime, it's very much singing to attract a mate. The other thing that they're doing is that they're claiming their territory. So a red-winged blackbird is a really good example about that. The males actually arrive on their nesting grounds earlier than the females. And so they're staking out those best territories. And then when the females arrive, they're going to choose their mates according to who has the best territory, because that's going to increase their reproductive success. Another thing that's happening when birds singing is that they're communicating about food. And especially in the late winter, you'll see that happening with groups of robins or cedar waxwings, and they're communicating about where are those fruits that are still left on the trees that they can get and find and survive on. Sounding alarm is another reason birds are singing, and it's not always singing. There are lots of different sounds that birds make, and so they're listening to each other across species. Even, you know, those claiming territories and attracting mate songs are more specific to the individual species, but those alarm calls are recognized by all, even beyond bird species. And then I like to think that they're also singing to express joy. So I'd like to share in that joy. So I wanted to share just a brief video that goes into all of those reasons. This is from Cornell Lab of Ornithology. And let's just take a couple seconds to see those birds singing and learn about why they're singing. There's your blue jay alarm call. And it's, like I said, it's going to be affecting other species other than the jays as well. And I was surprised to hear this robin, that seep call. I would have thought it was a hawk. And so it's alerting all those other birds in the neighborhood. And there's that chickadee call where it's saying its own name, and those extra D's are high alert. Yes, Yes, so that absence of sound as well is a big auditory cue. And whenever I'm in my neighborhood and I notice that, I do look up, because oftentimes that's when you're going to find that hawk that's nearby. So one thing that's really helpful when you're learning birdsong is to have mnemonics. And so a mnemonic is a pattern that helps you remember something. And with birdsong, oftentimes it's the bird's name that's put to that song, or a phrase that is oftentimes silly that also helps kind of embed that as a memory in your brain. So let me play that chickadee alarm call for you here, and you can hear, like, if in your mind you're repeating that to yourself, or even saying it out loud, it really helps solidify that memory. So here's the chickadee and its alarm call. And so when you're picturing yourself, picturing those chickadees saying their own name, it really, then you can get the visual with it as well. And the more information you have when you're creating those memories, the easier it is for you to access those memories. So I'm going to start off with bird songs that a lot of us already know. And so just like to build your confidence right off the bat. So here's the American crow. And you'll hear them all year round. So I'm sure everyone's familiar with the crow. And then similarly, you're hearing the raven, which is a much more gravelly sound to its call. And very conversational with those ravens talking together. And then we already just heard the chickadee's alarm call, but here's its mating call. And that song you'll just start hearing in the springtime. And the mnemonic that I like to put to that is, "Hey, sweetie, hey, sweetie." And that just also helps you remember that that's that mating call for the chickadee. Moving on to another one you're hearing it more in the fall when the geese are migrating as large flocks, but in the springtime, you'll see them coming back 2 by 2 to claim their nesting grounds. So here's the Canada goose. I can practically sing when I hear that sound. And then last of all, a blue jay, and I like the mnemonic of just it's saying J, J. So I'm gonna listen for that in its call when you hear it. Oop. And go. It's a very boisterous tone to that call. And you also heard that sort of wardle in there as well. So giving you a sense that it's not just those birds have a large repertoire of sounds they can make. Let's see here, moving on. Oop. So here we're going to look at birds that you've been hearing all year round. So like I said, with spring migration and lots of birds arriving, it's nice to get a foundation of the songs that you've been hearing through the winter. So the mourning dove here, a very cooey call. And then the American robin with a very sing-songy. And I should have told you the mnemonic for that ahead of time, and maybe I'll go back and play it again. But what we teach the kids is cheerio, cheerily, cheerio, cheerily, cheerio, cheerily. So let's give that another another listen with that mnemonic in mind. Yeah, so nice to have the words for the bird songs. And then here we have the cardinal, and this one doesn't have a word mnemonic, but what I like to, how I like to remember it is that it sounds like a lightsaber from Star Wars, like shoo, pew, pew, fighting. So here's the cardinal. Very whistly. Here, here. And this, they've been around all winter, but boy, in the springtime, they're waking up early and they have a lot to say. So you can definitely get practice in recognizing that call. And then here's the pileated woodpecker. My dog is looking out the window right now to see what's going on. And she's singing along. And you'll see that pileated woodpecker right on a fence. So they're not just out in the woods, they are in our neighborhoods. And you'll notice really big excavations in trees. So it's not subtle if you have one in your neighborhood. And that's my dog, Billy, singing along.
Gwen, we got a question about cardinals. I was going to jump in.
Oh, good, thanks.
Linda was saying that cardinals at their home are especially vocal this year. Any ideas, any reasons why that might be?
I would imagine that what's going on is that they are establishing a nesting site near your house. And so, yeah, I have a pair of cardinals that nest right in my backyard. And I would say about 6 or 7 years ago, I noticed that they just upped their level of, they're up at 4 in the morning, they're right outside my window. So yes, I think it's a nice site that they're establishing those territories, and they do that for a while too. And then once they've laid the eggs, the females especially will pipe down because they don't want to reveal where that nest site is. But in this period of time where they're establishing territories and establishing those nest sites, yeah, it's gonna be loud. Any other questions, Debbie? It's nice to, and I do very much welcome questions throughout the presentation. So it's a good cue to me to give it a pause and give you an opportunity to ask things along the way.
Just a reminder, if you didn't catch it at the beginning, you can type those questions right in the chat and I'll be able to queue them up for Gwen. And you can send them to she and I right in the chat box.
Alrighty, then I will move on to some of the early kind of harbingers of spring birds that their songs, these bird songs are really give hope that winter is over and we're moving into a different season. So here's the red-winged blackbird. And as I spoke earlier, it's the males who are coming back and singing to establish those territories. And let's see here. It's challenging. There we go. Marie is the mnemonic for the red-winged blackbird song. Let's hear it one more time. And it's so amazing to see the video and to connect the visual with the sound and the mnemonic. And the other thing I'm noticing when it's this blackbird, it's a male, is the epaulets, the red epaulets are really flared with that. Yeah, so very much about establishing that territory, letting folks know where they're at. Hey, Billy. All right. Oh, and the white-throated sparrow, this is very much my spring is here song. And it just, I would say 4 days ago, I heard my first white-throated sparrow in my neighborhood. And I live right outside of Burlington, and white-throated sparrows don't nest in the city. or in more urban areas, they nest in the woods. So in the springtime, they move through and they'll come to feeders, and they'll, I noticed them feeding on all the leaves that I did not clean up, intentionally did not clean up from my garden, which is really hard thing to do, is to leave all those, all of that gardening, all of those leaves and seed stalks up, because in the spring when birds are coming through on migration, that's where they're going to go to get their food resources. So here's the white-throated sparrow, and its mnemonic is, "Oh, sweet Canada, Canada, Canada." So let's give it a listen. So just, and then that's, I think it's also singing for joy. And there are a lot of sparrows that show up, and you can see from that video, it's very distinctive, the black and white, like a racing cap on the top, and then these yellow lures right across, it's kind of like its cheeks. And then the third bird I have here is an early spring migratory bird, and is the eastern phoebe. And when they arrive back, they're very loyal to their nest site. So they're going to use that same location over and over and over. And they often choose kind of, well, they're not always so great about where they choose. They're often going to be in a doorway or somewhere that is just right in a busy place. And they're going to keep coming back to that year after year. And when they arrive, this is what they're going to sound like. And they're going to say their own name. And it's funny, when we have a birdsong game we work with, that we teach with the kids, and I have them all make a scrunch up their face, and it's a very scratchy tone to their voice. So they say their own name, and it's like this, Phoebe, Phoebe. So here, listen up to the Phoebe. Whoop, hold on, I went back, and there it is. So very scratchy tone. And the other thing I want you to notice is that as it's perched, it'll have a tail wag that's going on as well. Although it might not do it while it's singing. There you go. And it has a very boxy silhouette to its head, and there's that tail wag right there to help you identify it. But it really, that Phoebe, that scratchy, very strong call is very distinctive in identifying the eastern Phoebe.
All right, there's a couple of questions that came in on these birds.
Good.
Peggy is asking, if the male red-winged blackbirds arrive first, where do the females hang out?
They are doing their own migration journey. So they leave a little bit later. I don't know exactly where they are. And I'm not sure if, I mean, they do have data. I don't know that they have like geolocator tags that they've done with red-winged blackbirds, because a lot of that research is on birds that are more imperiled. And so my understanding, just from like the sourcing of eBird data, which is individuals' observations, is that those males, well, I don't know that they probably, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm not sure that it pulls out the difference between males and females. But my understanding of it is that the females start their migration journey a little later and then arrive a couple weeks after the males. And Debbie, yes. I'm happy if you have other information on that, please chime in, because I'm like, I know it to be true, but I'm not sure how I know it.
That is also what I have heard. Just the females have the opportunity to stay in place a little longer, prepping for that migration. They don't have quite that same pressure. And then we got another question from Diane about the Phoebe's nest. It sounds like at Diane's house, a lot like here at our office, the Phoebes reused the nest for several years, but it fell apart. So will they come back and rebuild it? Absolutely. Yes, they will definitely do that. And you know, with the eastern bluebirds, if you have nest boxes, it's getting to be a little late in the season to clean those nest boxes out, but it's really important to do that in the winter every year, because mites can be a very dangerous
pest for those nestlings. So if that nest fell apart, it's time for it to rebuild. So that's a good thing.
And then that are so all the questions so far. Thanks, folks. Keep them coming. This is great.
Yeah. All right. So a couple simple songs. And these are both birds that are around year-round. Here on the left, we have the tufted titmouse. And the mnemonic there is Peter, Peter, Peter. Laughing at my dog. A little faster than I was. So you'll be hearing those already. And then the white-breasted nuthatch, the mnemonic for that one is yank, yank, and it's a very, very nasal tone. So let's give that a set here. And then the video is it's exactly where you'll see them. They forage for insects on the trunks of trees, and they move down the trees head first. Whoop, there's up, right side up there. And so that's your white-breasted nuthatch.
Hey, Gwen,
Yes.
technical thing here. Can you turn up the volume a little bit? That sound was just very, very quiet.
Okay, let me
on
get
that
that.
nuthatch.
It was a little quiet on my computer too, so I think let's give that another play. Whoop. Now it's not even sounding like a nuthatch. Hold on. Back that up to the start. It's right out of its nesting hole. And I think I backed it up further than where I started before, but here we go. So that's as loud as I can get that one, but it is a very, very nasal tone on that. So here we're going to shift into some birds that sound like other animals. And so we're going to start off with the gray catbird. And it has a very, very cat-like sound to its call. Wait for it. Takes a while. I haven't tapped them yet. Where did we get there? Oh, I said the word cat and it's the dog was interested in cat. And I'm going to pause it there because what I want you to notice first is that the catbird is doing a two phrase, repeating the same sound in multiples of two. So pay attention to that as we're waiting for it to make that more of a catty sound. Perfect. That really gives you a sense of the catbird is a mimic, so it gives you a sense of all the different vocalizations that it has in its repertoire. There we go. And we're going to move on from the great catbird here to the American goldfinch. And it has its base song. It has another mnemonic, which is potato chip, potato chip. But then it also, at the end of that song, it has a very nasal, squeaky sound that sounds like a pig. So let's listen to that. Potato chip. You hear the squeaky piggy noise there. It's interesting. As I was listening in for that potato chip sound, I heard a couple of other bird songs in the background. I don't know if you caught those, but I heard a crow and then I heard a chickadee as well. So the next video we have are chimney swifts, and I know bats make sounds that are not audible to human ears, but if we could hear them, this is what I would imagine that that bats would sound like. And there we go. That shattering sound up there. And what we are watching there is in the late summer, chimney swifts will all come together at a roosting site. And actually, this is a nice opportunity for me to mention that we do have a chimney swift monitoring program. So if you're thinking about an opportunity, looking for an opportunity to participate in some community science, we can visit our website and learn about how to report your sightings of chimney swifts, because they're a species that has been in decline. And so we're working with the state to identify the sites where chimney swifts are both nesting as well as roosting. So if you could keep your eyes and ears on the skies, it would be really helpful for us to learn about where those chimney swifts are so that we can protect those crucial habitats for them. And then the last animal-like song that I wanted to play here for us is a cedar waxwing. And it sounds like a dog who is whining. And where'd my cursor go? There we go. Here it is. That's not it yet. Super high pitched. Mostly you hear the people, but it's just very, very high pitched above that. And the first time that I heard this song, I literally thought it was my dog whining, but it was birds. All right. So here we have a collection of woodpeckers. And some woodpeckers you can identify by the pattern of how they peck on the wood, and other woodpeckers have very distinctive calls to them. So I'm going to start with the red-bellied woodpecker, which is a species that has expanded its range into Vermont because of climate change. And we're going to be seeing, because of climate change, we're going to be seeing more and more species that are doing this. And so here, I would say about 6 or 7 years ago, we started hearing these birds here in Vermont. That's a very, how would you describe that? A quartal. It's a very distinctive call. And yeah. So keep your ears open for that. And it almost sounds like a tree frog, but it's very much a woodpecker. And I'm going to play that again because it might be new to folks. Oh, we need to back up a little bit further. There we go. And then the next one, we have the yellow-bellied sapsucker. And this is a bird whose pecking pattern is distinctive. And what you'll notice about the sound of the yellow-bellied sapsucker pecking is that it starts the tempo of the pecking. It starts out quickly and then it slows down in its tempo. Oh dear, hold on. Let's keep going there. Get another opportunity to hear that tempo slowing down. Kind of subtle, but it's very different from any other woodpecker you will hear. And here's the pileated woodpecker by comparison. And you really, I mean, this is a big bird. It stands probably 8 inches tall. And so you'll get a sense of just the size and the intensity of the pecking that it's doing. And you'll see it's not pecking on a tree. So, you know, woodpeckers are going to be pecking to find, you know, to excavate a nest cavity. They'll be pecking to find insects that are in those trees. And then the other thing that they're doing is they're communicating with that drumming sound. And so the woodpecker has found a really resonant telephone pole here to really get its message out. And then here we have the downy woodpecker, and this is the song that is distinctive, and the tone is descending. So it's high pitched, and then the pitch is lowered. It's almost like a horse whinny, like a tiny horse. You can hear it again. Flycatchers in the background. And you can see it's up foraging on the trunk of the tree there. Let me back up because that was just one very fast call. And let's hear it again. And that was my dog, Billy. There you go. So very fast, very high pitched and descending in tone. This is, I like, there's some very strange sounds that birds make that I wouldn't characterize as songs or as calls. So I'm going to start with the American woodcock and its courtship display. And it makes, the mnemonic that it makes is peet, peet. Again, a very, very distinctive sound. A very buzzy peet. And they have a courtship display where the males will fly up into the air and then circle into the area, and you'll see there's a female coming in, being attracted to this very vibrant courtship display of flight and sound. And right now, it's that woodcock is continuing to make a peeting noise, and then the aerial display, you'll really hear the wings fluttering along. I'm not sure if it has the visual of the display or not. Whoop! They're way in the back. It landed on the ground. So. But it's not a bird song. It's just it's a very strange sound. The next strange bird sound is the hooded merganser. And I learned this from a homeschooler a few years ago. We were doing a game about recognizing the feathers and the coloration on birds. And she said, "Hey, do you know what that sounds like?" And no, I never listened to it before. And it makes a popping noise and then just a funny noise. You just have to listen to it. It makes me laugh every time. It's a pop and a growl. The pop is a little subtle, but that growl is not subtle. And it's a very, very interesting display too of its on its head feathers. And then here is the American bittern, and it has a very, very watery kind of noise. And I'm just going to play it. I'm not sure that I could describe it. I could sing it, but I'll let the American bittern do the work. They're very well camouflaged, and they come near. That is no longer a bittern. That is a sicklebill that they're not from Vermont. But the bittern, I was saying it's very well camouflaged, and you can see it's black and white, and their habitat is a wetland. And so when they're wanting to really camouflage themselves well, they put their beak straight up in the air, and they just look like any other cattail or reed that is in the wetland. So we're going to move on to some of the most beautiful bird songs that are out there. And we're going to start with the veery, which when people ask me what is my favorite bird song, this is the bird I tell them about. So let's listen to that. Very just ethereal, beautiful song. And birds can create two tones at the same time, so you can hear it harmonizing with itself. And then I'm going to play the song with the common loon, very iconic Vermont sound from the summer if you're out near a pond where they're nesting.
On many an occasion, I've been camping in the Adirondacks, and one of my favorite periods is right at dusk, when the lake becomes absolutely glass-like. The sun is setting, but you can still see the silhouettes of trees, all these conical spires. Beautiful reflection on the water with the last few bits of sunlight, and then you hear the wail of a loon.
All right, and then a couple of thrushes as well. We have the wood thrush and then the hermit thrush, which is the state bird of Vermont. So let's start with the wood thrush. And these two songs are very similar. And what I'll key you to listen in for is that for the wood thrush song, there is sort of a shattering tone at the end of its song. So listen for that. It's missing from the hermit thrush's song. So listen for that shattering sound. Let's begin. And then let's contrast that with the hermit thrush song. So very, very similar song, but it doesn't have that shattery tone at the end. It's just beautiful using those two tones interplaying with each other. One more time. Debbie, are there any questions in the chat? Just wanted to take a pause here.
No, I think I have gotten to the ones that came in this little past section after figuring out some sound things. So, but Peggy did just ask ovenbird song question mark.
Ovenbird is coming. We're gonna wrap it up with speedy songs, then some slow songs, and then I'll move into a handful of warblers.
So you're on it, Peggy, with your thrushes. You didn't miss anything. We're gonna come back to it.
All right, so here we have the bobolink with these are two birds with very speedy songs, and the bobolink song, it reminds me of R2-D2 from Star Wars. So let's take a listen. Oh, caught a bird, or caught an insect. Very metallic, very boisterous. This was described to me as sounding like an electric guitar solo. So let's check that out here. It's just so amazing to see. I hear it all the time, but I never get to see it up close like this. And these are birds that nest in the forest, and they nest in the root, sort of like root tangles of trees that have fallen down. And then slowing it down for a couple vireo songs, we have the red-eyed vireo. And the mnemonic that we teach for this one is, look at me, way up high, over here, in a tree. So let's listen to the red-eyed vireo and sing along in your head. And they just keep that up all day long. Once they're back, they start singing at dawn and straight through the day. It's not a lot of migratory birds, especially, they'll have that dawn chorus of bird song, and the red-eyed vireo just keeps on going all day long. And here's the song of the blue-headed vireo. It's also known as a solitary vireo, and there's a lot more of a pause between each phrase in its song. So a very similar tone and pattern, but it's that space between the phrases that sets it apart. All right, and then let's move into some warbler songs. So there's so many warblers, and they're all arriving in Vermont now. So we're going to start with the yellow warbler, and it's the mnemonic that I remember for this one is sweet, 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 I'm so sweet. Very high pitched, very bouncy song. Here again. Sweet, 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 I'm so sweet. And really singing along with the birds really does help to get that mnemonic into your mind and solidified as a memory. So here's the chestnut-sided warbler, and it's a similar kind of pattern. And its mnemonic is pleased to meet you. I'm chestnut-sided warbler. And I gotta admit that I added that second bit because for years, I would, they'd come back in the spring, I'd hear the song and I'd remember the mnemonic and I'd say, well, pleased to meet you, but I don't know who you are. And so like I added that extra bit to it to help me remember its name. Pleased to meet you. I'm chestnut-sided warbler. And this is a bird that nests in early successional forests and very shrubby vegetation. So that's where you'll be likely to hear its song. Whereas the black and white warbler, you'll see it up in the very high canopy of the forest. And this doesn't have words to its mnemonic, but it sounds like a squeaky wheel, very high pitched. So I'm recognizing it by the tone, as well as sort of this cyclical, when you're saying squeaky, the song has a cyclical sense to it. All right, so a few more warblers. We have the common yellowthroat, and you can see it has a black mask. Its other nickname is the bandit bird, and it has a bouncy song, and its mnemonic is witchity, witchity, witchity. Not yet. There we go. Just warming up. There you go. So really clear. Witchity, witchity, very bouncy song. And then here we have the black-throated green warbler, which is a much more buzzy song. And its mnemonic is zee, 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 zoo, zee. And it's Steve Hagenbu, who is our conservation biologist, helped to distinguish between the black-throated green warbler and the black-throated blue warbler songs. That the green warbler goes up and down, zee, 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 zoo, zee. It's the tone goes up and down like the Green Mountains go up and down. Whereas the black-throated blue warbler has a song that says zee, 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 zee. And the tone is rising up into the blue sky. So let's listen to that black-throated green warbler first. And then the black-throated blue warbler going up high into the sky. Zee, 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 zee. There we go. And then just three more. And sorry, I had the ovenbird here, which is a thrush, not a warbler. And it has a very strong, distinctive song, which is, its mnemonic is pizza, 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 pizza. And it crescendos, there's a crescendo for it. And you will hear it all day long once they arrive back in Vermont. And I like using the mnemonic of pizza because the nest that it builds looks like the pizza oven on the ground. It just leaves and comes in from the side. And so there's the ovenbird. And then we have the golden wing warbler, which is a very buzzy song, which is bee, buzz, buzz. So these warblers, it can be really, there are a lot of warblers that arrive back and a lot of their songs sound familiar. And so my advice for learning their songs is to, just like I said, just learn a couple every year and get really solid on them. And if you can see them singing while you're hearing them and add that mnemonic, that's really going to be the best. And so here's our last warbler for now is the Blackburnian warbler, which is a very high-pitched song. And once more. All right, so I'm noticing that we're running a little short on time here, and we have a few minutes, and I have a quick test for you. They're just 3 slides here where you have 4 different birds, and I'm going to play a song and see how you do in identifying this bird song. Definitely not a crow. Very bouncy song. And the mnemonic is witchity, witchity, witchity. So that was the common yellow throat. Round 2, we have 4 birds here. Let's listen to a song. Not a goose. It's a bird that's saying its own name with a very nasal tone. So that's the Phoebe calling there. And whoop, let's move on to round number 3, which is our last round in the test. Let's give a listen to this one. Ah, and I did not get into the owls. And this is the barred owl, and its mnemonic is "Who cooks for you? Who cooks for you all?" Oh, I had one more. Okay, let's bonus round number 4, and let's give that a listen. Very silly song of the American woodcock. All right, so before I wrap it up with final questions, I did want to give everybody a few opportunities for how you can take action to help birds in your community. So one of my favorite things this time of year, and actually pretty much any time through the fall when the ground is not frozen, is to plant native plants. So creating habitat for birds is a wonderful way that you can take action in your own yard, in your own community, and think bigger. Think about parks around you. Think about town forests. Really focusing on native plants is a way to provide food for birds in all seasons. And I'm going to be doing a couple presentations this spring, one at Red Wagon Plants this Thursday, and then one at Horsford's Nursery in May. And I would invite you to join me there to learn more about those connections between plants, native plants, and birds. The second thing I will urge you to do is when you are seeing birds and hearing birds, use eBird to submit those sightings, because this is a resource that scientists can use data from to learn more about the critical habitat that we need to protect in order to really make a difference in bird conservation. So eBird is our second action item I will point you to. And then the third thing, if you would like to join us for Birdathon, we have Audubon Vermont's biggest fundraiser is coming up in May, and it's May 20th through the 26th. And you can visit vt.audubon.org/Birdathon. Make sure you choose Vermont as the state, and you can sign up to donate. Or if you would like to go out birding on your own and get a team of folks to join you, that's another great option to kind of put these new or brushed up birding skills to use. So that will wrap it up. And oh my goodness, it's 1 o'clock on the nose. And if there are any questions, I would love to hear those from you. And I think Debbie is going to be putting some of those links in the chat with other resources about birdsong, as well as opportunities to take action.
Yes, there are so many links. And we got a question earlier too about resources for hearing bird calls. And I want to highlight, as Gwen mentioned, it's really helpful to learn bird calls as you are seeing those birds. So Audubon has an app that you can download before you go out into the field. And that app also has the ability to have sound recordings. So because of those sound files and your ability to download it, it will take up a bunch of space. But it's really, really handy to then have that and be able to check in. Okay, like I saw the robin, now I'm looking at the robin. Just a note to please be an ethical birder, and playing those bird calls out while you are near where those birds are. It can stress them out. It'll make them think that there's somebody else on their turf. So, please be an ethical birder and just listen to those calls to help reinforce your learning and not to stress out the birds. But that one is really good. Cornell's lab also has their All About Birds is a great resource. And you can also listen to bird calls there. Also, Peter caught me. I said something mistakenly earlier when we were talking about the ovenbird. Ovenbirds are not thrushes. They are not in the family Turridae with the robins and the bluebirds and the thrushes. So thank you, Peter, for getting me. Ovenbirds are warblers.
I thought it was a warbler. I thought I put it in there right. So
yeah, you got it.
Good.
Even though they do look a lot like those.
They do
have a lot of similarities to the Veeries.
Make a nest, yeah.
And then there was another really great question about, from Diane. Do male and female birds have the same calls?
Calls or song? So it depends on the bird species. So I'm thinking, thinking about chickadees, the males and females are both going to be, calling back to each other with that "Hey, sweetie" mating call, and they're both going to be using the mating song, and then they're both going to be using that chickadee-dee-dee alarm call. And so I'm thinking about which birds might. Oh boy, there is a group of Audubon folks who have been putting a lot of time and effort into really focusing on female birds, and because a lot of research that has been done in ornithology has been around male birds. And so those resources would be really great. Can you think, I know Martha Harbison is involved with that. What do they call themselves? I think they call themselves the Galbatrosses. But I'll get that link together for you. And I know that AARP is going to be sending some other resources to you afterwards to follow up on, and I'll make sure that that is included so you can learn more about those differences between male and female. But yeah, I need to learn more. Thank you for the question.
It is really interesting. I heard Scott Weidenzahl talk about this, and there are lots of female birds that do actually sing and have very similar songs, and there's like the females put the selective pressure on the male for what their song sounds like, which is really interesting. But like cardinals, the females sing a very similar song to the males, and they sing together. So it's yeah, I love that like pair bonding thing going on there with the singing. Great question. Gwen, do you have time for one more question? We got a question about avian flu and hummingbird feeders.
Yeah, I will take that question. So what's the full question on that?
Should we put out hummingbird feeders with the presence of avian flu?
So at this point, so we were definitely taking our cues from the Vermont Fish and Wildlife Department, and they have issued a press release about that. We are advising folks to pull in all feeders just to mitigate any risk that is possible out there, and to eliminate any possibility that humans will be helping to contribute to spread avian flu. But that being said, what we are seeing that the avian flu is primarily showing up in domestic poultry. It is in some waterfowl. And of course, you've seen that there have been cases of avian flu reported in bald eagles here in Vermont. So raptors that feed on those waterfowl or domestic poultry. So it has not yet been seen in the songbird populations, and the recommendation to pull in bird feeders is the very just an extra added precaution. And it's also, we recommend people bring their feeders in during the summertime to keep bear populations safe. So, and that's true for hummingbird feeders as well as seed feeders. So what I would highly recommend is that you find native plants, and there are a lot of really great options for hummingbirds. One of my favorites is jewelweed. There's also cardinal flower. Anything that has a long tubular red shape to the flower, that's going to be your best option. And you never have to refill them. You just put them out there and the birds find them, and it's really entertaining to watch them. And just like with a hummingbird feeder, when you're planting those native plants for hummingbirds, you want to put them in different places in your yard because the males are very territorial about guarding those food resources. So if you want to attract more hummingbirds, you want to spread those out. Debbie, did you have anything to add? Oh, and if you do end up seeing, just information for everyone, if you do observe birds that are sick or dead, please do not touch those birds. And depending on what species of bird it is, Fish and Wildlife would like to either receive a sample or know about it. So you can get more information on their website or our website as well.
That is it. Thank you everyone for the really, really great questions. I'm laughing because a comment just came in that said, my cats loved this presentation also. Thank you all. Thank you all so much. I'm going to make sure that I capture everything you put in the chat so I can make sure I send out with the recording today those links and those other resources that were mentioned. So we'll make sure that Laura gets those so they can be sent to you all. But thank you again, everyone. This was really, really great.
Thanks, everyone.